One thing I just wrote an essay about this last week was this shift that I'm seeing in terms of brands partnering with female centered TV shows and movies, right? Obviously, there was the whole Barbie spectacle that was like a whole cultural event with like, brands wanting to, jump on the bandwagon. Wicked and then Wicked for Good also,
Yeah,
did similarly. We just saw it with the Devil Wears Prada 2.
yeah.
But one of the interesting things happening is what's happening on Netflix. The Kate Hudson show Running Point has brands sponsoring.
Oh, wow, okay.
And they're
I
like
didn't
directly in the show. They're being featured. It's like Sephora, State Farm, right? So it's like brands that make sense. And so one of the things that I was thinking about was like, okay, that's the first iteration, like Netflix is doing that. Like, what's this next iteration? Like, is there a possibility where female, production companies go direct to the brands and are like, hey, come sponsor us directly to create this like work, like Kickstarters, right? Brands, as we were talking earlier,
yeah,
have a lot more money to spend, right? I mean, Apple did it with Formula One. They went direct to brands to like see if who wanted to be like sponsored like the car, featured
yeah,
in that, right? So it's
sure.
like, is that the next iteration where it's like brands are paying to be featured in shows, like the way that they do with podcasts, like, we
Yep,
have no problem with that anymore. This next thing is like it should be in film. And
yeah,
I think a huge reason why that's a possibility is because people hate ads. Like they really, really,
yeah,
really hate commercials. That's
yeah,
another reason why I think clipping is becoming a thing because it's like I'm trusting you to curate your
yeah,
best moments and then not put an ad break
yeah,
in between, right?
yeah,
So now
yeah,
female production companies go direct to the brands to establish those relationships, come to a studio and be like, all right, we've paid for like, this amount. All we need is obviously the distribution because the studios still have that.
yeah.
And get more like female centered films and TV shows.
I mean, Sean Baker's first film after Anora was a branded film for self-portrait. So
Mm,
self-portrait is mostly e-commerce. I think now they're carried in a couple of other places, but
hmm.
Malaysian fashion designer, he got Sean Baker with Michelle Yeoh to create a
Mm,
film. And
I
so the
love that.
whole film,
I
like
miss that.
beautiful story.
Uh-huh.
Michelle Yeoh's wearing self-portrait throughout, but it's not obvious. It's not
Hmm.
obvious that it's essentially a very long ad, but it is
Yeah.
so, Sean Baker shooting on an iPhone and this
Uh-huh.
beautiful story of a woman that's playing, I think it's 5 or 6 different roles, and it's really beautifully done. I'm
Hmm.
like, more brands should do that. Like, would
Yeah.
you rather have your logo on the sleeve of a soccer jersey, or would you rather have this beautiful film that just goes absolutely viral, that
Hmm.
everyone's watching, that
Hmm.
you get this long tail credit for making a beautiful piece of art with, like, the most respected people in the industry,
Hmm.
without it feeling like an ad? I think there's a very delicate way of doing
Yeah.
it, where brands can tell stories without it feeling overly advertorial.
Yeah, that reminds me, I think it was Toyota at the Super Bowl was like, go watch these like 6 films with these like 6 actors and directors that and like use that as a way to like, grow brand awareness. And I thought that was like really interesting. And I think there's just so much to be done within Hollywood and like especially tech. It's like if you
Yeah.
want better stories to be told about technology and like science and and all that, then it's like go to the people that are true storytellers and artists that can like do that and come up with those ideas.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's also the companies that do this really well are the ones that deeply understand your users. Like, you really have
Mhm.
to dig into the data. You really have to find the interesting anecdotes. You really have to understand how people are using your technology to tell some of
Yeah.
these stories. And I do think it's the more customer obsessed founders that deeply care about their users are able to do this kind of stuff. Like, if you're only looking at Google Analytics, if you're only running reports and you're looking at like very top line metrics, you're not going to be able to surface some of these really compelling stories that could turn into beautiful documentaries or beautiful films.
Agreed. Yeah, one of those the companies that I think is doing it super well is Stripe. Obviously, they have Stripe Press, but they also have this documentary channel that like really dives deep into like different topics. One was like Japanese whiskey making, and it was just like super interesting because it's like, well, why would Stripe be doing this? It's like for love of the game, right? It's like both founders really care about like craft. Obviously, that's why like Stripe Press, also came out of it. So I love that they're using, the money that's coming in through Stripe, the, tech company, to funnel into like Stripe documentaries and Stripe
Mhm.
books, like, and the arts, which shows that like they see the value in both, right? It's not
Yeah.
just one or the other, but funding, real artists and real like storytellers that will create narratives that like help the world, I think is like the best solution for tech companies going forward if
Yeah,
that's
for
really what
sure.
they want to do, especially as they're, navigating, animosity for like AI and like tech in general.
Yeah,
And I was like,
yeah,
and it's such an obvious thing because I was like, both industries are in California. Like, come on, come
yeah,
together.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny, I mean, I've seen some I live in San Francisco, obviously, and, 9 out of 10 billboards is all talking about agents.
Yeah.
Agent this, agent that, replacing employees, automation, insert whatever AI buzzword.
Yeah.
I've recently seen some, like, Airbnbs doing an incredible job of
Yeah.
just storytelling and why do people travel and what makes travel important. I recently saw All Trails is running some ads as well that's,
Hmm.
like, more about trail time instead of screen time, and I think
Hmm.
there's such a beautiful way of connecting with people, like, these companies that are reminded that agents aren't driving their car
Yeah.
on the 101 or on 280, humans are, and so the more you can tell stories that actually make people think and make people excited to try your product, like, that's gonna land so much better than just continuously telling these same AI stories that
Yes.
are now starting to get very convoluted, and I can't remember who said what.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so takeaways for the full episode. Yeah, I guess it's just kind of figuring out like what are the things that like you want your product or service to stand for. Like what are those stories that you can tell that is going to bring in an audience, and then going direct to them via, I mean, videos is the big thing right now. Like there's a reason why movies are starting to, have a resurgence, is I think people want those stories and they want to experience things in person,
Yeah,
like, one of the other topics that, I brought up, to talk about with Brienne was that like theaters are seeing that resurgence. And I think it's because people want to do that IRL like interaction, right? That's why pop-ups are growing, and like, sing-alongs for like K-pop Demon Hunters is because they want to like see people in real life. Um, and so like companies should be thinking about like those types of moments. Like how do we do that digitally and how do we do it like in person? Instead of just thinking about like how to, put your logo on, like a car or something. And then the other one is there are, like, avenues for you to, like, as a creator to, go direct to people, whether on YouTube or, like, TikTok, and, like, work through your ideas, and I think that, like, really figuring that out and, like, testing that muscle over and over is not only going to, like, help you find an audience and reach, like, new heights in terms of growing, both creatively and that audience, but will counteract how much AI can actually take over your job, because it's like everybody else is going to be copying AI. What are you doing that's like different, to stand out, not just to other creators, but to AI?
I completely agree with all of that. I feel like we're at a time where, there's a lot of tools that are readily, available and at our disposal. I think the people that are thinking tools first end up making more slop. I think the people that have a vision for the stories they wanna tell, they understand who they're trying to reach and talk to. Like, I even struggle with creators that I talk to who are very, their primary goal is to build an audience, and you're like, "What is the purpose of this audience?" Like, I think it's really interesting to see, like, the creatives that have done really well over the years were either, um, creating art because it was something inside of them that they had to get out, and there was
Mhm.
no other way but to just create the art and keep creating it for themselves, so it's more of an outlet, and it's more of a cathartic experience for them. I think for, the folks that maybe sometimes I find this, like, sometimes you maybe have a few things go viral and the followers and the audience that you've built are not the actual ones that you want. And so I
Right.
do think there's even like, if you're unhappy with what you've built, do you sort of burn it down and start over? And I think we are at that point as well, where, a lot of creatives are constantly in this sort of season of either building and sort of growing their audience, but then there's an inflection point where you start to evolve and change as an artist. Like I think
Mhm.
Charlie XCX is a great example of this. You have like a peak moment in time. The entire world is celebrating Brat's summer. It was sort of this finite period in that it was a summer itself,
Yeah.
where we have the film to celebrate and remember it. No, now she's a writer on Substack, and she's like really focused on acting, and she's spending more time
Mhm.
on Letterboxd. It's like I think as artists we have these different chapters, and it's up to us to sort of say, "This is the end point. That's who I was. Now I'm evolving and I'm gonna be someone new." And I think there's these moments where you need to do you, and you need to explore these different art forms and different styles or different aspects of your being, and you have to be comfortable with the fact that, like, you may lose your old audience in that process. You may, evolve and sort of grow into this new being that's completely different than what you imagined, but I do think AI is actually allowing us to do that in certain ways, shapes, and forms. I think from a video perspective, like, more people are now on video because it's becoming faster and easier to edit.
Mhm.
I see this in internationalizing, like, the fact that anyone can use AI to use their actual voice and speak in many, many, many different languages is really cool. Like,
Mhm.
I'm speaking at a conference in 2 weeks in Rio, and many of the conference attendees are Portuguese only, and so I'm using my AI voice to, like, translate some of my old podcasts into Portuguese. I'm like, "This is really cool. I would have never thought to do this before, but it's
Yeah.
possible."
Yeah, that's so cool.
So, yeah, I do think, like, the world is becoming more accessible. I think
Uh-huh.
that, like, the Amazons and the, Barnes& and Nobles and the traditional sort of institutions need to evolve as well, but I'm excited directionally where the world is going. I think, like, we're in this awkward period where we're seeing a lot of AI slop, but I really think it's gonna get better.
Yeah, that reminds me of 2 things. One, Reese Witherspoon, she was talking about her, process of going from acting to, like, building the production company, and she spoke about, walking with purpose in a direction that you wanna go to. For her, it was the reading, right? She took the reading, was then optioning the books in order to create the scripts to then have those, like, female-centered stories that she was so interested in, like,
Yeah,
acting, and she's like, "I did that because there weren't enough roles for me and all the other women that wanted
yeah,
to like compete for these roles. So I thought that this would be the way to do it. And then that's what led to the whole production company, Hello Sunshine, where, I always say that I love that she's always employing her friends because it's
yeah.
like, she's got different TV shows, movies, and everything of like the female center story that she wanted. And then the other thing is this whole idea of like monetization, right? Where it's like thinking about how to convert the ideas and like find a way to like make money while you're doing it, right? Like you mentioned earlier, like Rihanna and obviously like these actresses where it's like you basically mastered one thing and then it's like, okay, now that I'm going to go do this other thing, how can I make it so that I actually like make money from it, right? Like joining the
Mm.
Substack and like, having people pay for now your written words as opposed to just like your music. And so like you're expanding and you're making it so that like you're more stable and not just dependent on one avenue of like cash flow,
Oh, yeah, for
in
sure.
case you
Yeah.
do lose that audience.
For sure, and I also think as humans, like, we evolve, we grow, we get
Hmm.
bored. It's
Yep.
totally fine if you've been doing the same thing for the last 4 or 5 years and you get bored and you wanna evolve and start doing something else. Like, I think
Yeah.
we get smarter and things become more natural over time, and so I'm not surprised that we're seeing actors that say, "Hey, actually, I've been on so many sets, I can direct. Like, I'm gonna
Right.
be the best director because I know how
Hmm.
to act." Like, it's much different to have a director who's never acted versus, an actor who becomes a director, and so I think there's a lot of people that are saying, in this next chapter, I want to take on more. I want to be more creative. I want to be more business savvy. I want to, I now have access to different types of people and I want to go do much bigger, bolder things. And so I think that's net positive for everyone, where it's like we now have access to so much more information online. We have, the ability to cold email or DM, anyone. It may
Pretty much
take some
anyone.
time, but like if you're persistent, like things will go your way. And so I do think like there's all these conversations around what is the definition of a high agency person in the era of AI? And I
Mhm.
think we're going to see these very supercharged, tech savvy creatives that can just like continuously write books, make films,
Mhm.
star in their own films. I think we're going to see this new class of creator that are just highly ambitious and able to get stuff done because they're able to break through a lot of these dated institutions.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see what people create going forward.
Me too.
Um
I'm very optimistic. I think for a while I was very anti-AI slop and I was a
Uh-huh.
little worried about where things are going, but I think I'm getting really excited. Like there's just a
Uh-huh.
lot of interesting young talent that are getting started and they have access to a lot of tools that we didn't have
Mhm.
when we were younger. And I also think like there's now many playbooks of different types of creatives and
Mhm.
different types of business models that they can explore as well.
I mean, it's similar to us, right? Like we had to take the tools that became available to us, social media, email, and like learn how to create from that, right? Learn to write for a digital audience, learn to speak for, a social media audience. And so now this new generation has to take the AI and like run with it as well.
I always say this. I mean, people are always like, "Oh, you're one of the first, Twitter savvy VCs, solo
Mhm.
GPs." And I'm like, the reason for that, I use Twitter because no one would respond to my emails. Like I moved to Silicon Valley as a nobody and
Yeah.
you can pray that people at some point will want to have coffee with you, or you have to start writing down your ideas and getting them out there and be comfortable with saying some things that are not right or, embarrassing over the
Mhm.
years. And then you just get better. And so I do think a part of this is just getting comfortable with publishing your work online and getting comfortable with the, like,
Yeah.
ups and downs of the feedback on the internet, and it's
Yeah.
not all good and it's not all, helpful critiques, but I do think there's a version where if you are comfortable being a self-starter and you're comfortable getting your ideas out there, like, we're entering a really exciting time where anyone can start something.
Yes, I think that's like a huge takeaway here, and why I think it was so important to bring up the horror uh, genre because it's like it's happening there. I think it's possible in all these other ones by learning these tools, and that's why I think it's so counterproductive to be against AI when it's like if you learn how to enhance your own ability and your own uniqueness, that's how you fight back against AI slop and everybody reverting to the mean. And I think that true artists are recognizing that's why, I mean, Ben Affleck was talking about that, right? And it sounds smart coming from him because he's like, I'm a writer, I know what I'm talking about. And I feel like most artists have gotten to that point and it's not enough to just say, well, I'll never use AI. And it's like, well, there's different ways of using AI. Like nobody even knows what that means to use AI anymore, you know? But
So
yeah, overall excited for the
I
future to see
know.
what people do with it.